So I was saying that this topic, this is my own suspicion about it. We're not going to finish talking about it. As a matter of fact, when I leave this conversation feeling like, we should have said this, but it's okay.
You should have said,
It's
yep,
okay. It's not going to be one and done. We just want to ignite something, And I think it was a conversation. I talk about you a lot to my friend. I think they probably know you a lot. If you're listening all the time, it's because I'm talking about you. And I'm always going back to just my own process, in academia and just the things I've learned, and then how I'm also trying to encourage people that are coming ahead of me, like, that's not a good sign, this is the time we need to intervene, So I think for this one, we'll just start our conversation. All that to say, I'm still going to have to bring you back. We might even need to roll out like a whole Twitter or X sessions on this because there's a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot to unpack.
Yep. I agree with you.
Anyways, Okay, welcome back everyone to the podcast, and I am elated. I'm always excited when I have guests, but this time I'm super elated. And I know it was like, what does she mean? You guys are in for a treat, like a huge treat. This is one of my favorite people. That I met her like about 6 years ago, and she's just been a force to reckon with. And she's changed my process a lot. I'm gonna even have to. I'll be sharing a little bit about my work life, which I hardly talk about on the podcast today. And the safety I feel sharing about it is because this person is here, and she's seen me just go through a lot and coming off on the other side of what was once a lot. And I know that there's still gonna be a lot more coming in the future because that's how life is. But I feel more prepared to like take it over. So, anyways, who is she? Let me just give you. She has a very long repertoire, but let's shorten it. She's a pharmacist scientist with a PhD in pharmaceutical sciences. She specializes in drug metabolism and pharmacokinetics, and she got that from the Temple University School of Pharmacy. She completed an NIH T32 cardiovascular pharmacogenomics focused training fellowship at Vanderbilt University, and she also received a fellowship, teaching award there. She's also recently recognized by her university for her inclusive teaching skills, so kudos to her on that. She's a pharmacogenomics researcher. She contributes to various organizations, including the Clinical Pharmacogenomics Implementation Consortium and the Inter-Society Coordinating Committee for Practitioner Education in Genomics. Her research interests encompass drug outcomes in cardiovascular diseases, liver transplantation, and rare diseases like cystic fibrosis. She's a strong advocate. I can't even emphasize. She's a strong advocate for women and minority students and in various universities, including myself. She holds pharmacy licenses in Pennsylvania, in Tennessee, and New Jersey. All that to say that this beauty comes with a lot of brains. She also has a keen interest in literature, multicultural cuisine, and works as an editorial consultant in the health and life sciences sectors. I call her like the fairy godmother, fairy advocate, strong mother. Everybody, please join me welcoming Dr. Iwuchukwu Otito to the podcast. Like I call her Otito. How you doing?
Thank you. I'm well, thank you, Mo. I'm so glad to be here.
Same here. The last time we were on the show was for the academic Black Ivory in oh my goodness. And that was like maybe 3 years ago. Well, it's really nice.
During the pandemic.
It's really, really nice just bringing you on here. And I mean, it feels like we've lived like 3 different lifetimes between those Our topic today really would be advocacy. And I know for those that are listening, like, is it going to be something like a thesis? No, we're going to be very practical with people today because we're not here to mince words. But I know you have that. You have, as a member that you can tell that this is one of their strong suits. You're a born advocate. So I think it would be nice for the audience to kind of get to know how you grew up. Perhaps there are some instances in your... Because I feel like for people like you, there might be some issues where you've seen a lot of injustices and it's just like, no, I want to just stop this. And sometimes it might be from your formative years. Let me just walk us through how you grew up, your family dynamics, and, up onto the very...
Okay. So, family dynamics so important.
Yes.
All through growing up, my mother is like, you missed your calling, you should have been a lawyer. Like, she always say this to me while she was alive, because I could argue my case, till thy kingdom come. So I grew up as the last of 4 siblings. And so I think from that perspective, you take a look, you tend to, now, I mean, it's not like I'm trying to go into, family systems theory or anything, but I think as a youngest child, you tend to take a look and say, what's working, what's not working, right? In that sense. And also because your parents have done this multiple times over, in many cases, you have the freedom to be able to point out things, right? You're kind of looking and saying, I don't quite agree with this, or, this is not fair, that is not fair. And because I grew up in a household where they really allowed us to talk, I think I just kind of, grew into that, you see. And yeah, it has its pluses and minuses, but I think that that's one of the things that has brought me this way. Like, I don't know how not to talk.
Yeah.
I'll put it that way,
Yeah.
right? How not to speak up and say a situation to me, right, seems off. And so, like, what is going on there? So I ask a lot of questions, and I mean, you become, how you were raised to be, even as a parent. So I think that even for this, something that I've passed on to my children, right? This sense of, you know, um, speaking up, right, for what you want and being able to make a case for it in that sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I think even the dynamic as a female, because you're not
Mm-hmm.
expected to be very vocal about
Yeah,
things.
exactly.
So I think kudos to your parents
Yeah.
for even, nurturing that aspect of you and not killing it.
I appreciate them for
Keep
it.
your
I'm
mouth
not
shut.
even going to lie.
Right, 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 right. So there's this story you always told me about how
Mm-hmm.
so you're training in Nigeria, right? You got your pharmacy. What
Mm-hmm.
university did you go to? For those that don't know.
I went to University of Ibadan.
That's Ibadan. Okay. And then walk us through just what's inspired you to even come to the US for grad school.
Okay, so at the time, my brother and sister had relocated, right, through different avenues. And I was looking and I was like, I would like to join them, and I was working at the time. And so I started exploring my options. And one of the options was coming through the education pathway. And it was, to get a PhD. And everybody was like, are you okay? Like, why would you go do this and all that? And so this is where the story kind of gets funny because people told me later. I knew this later on. Like I literally found this out 2 years ago at my mother's funeral. So my father's cousins were telling me that when my father's mother was going to pass away, she said that she told them that they were going to give birth to a daughter who would like study all the books that she never got to study. Right, in that
Mm,
sense. And so they were saying, that we kind of knew that this PhD was in your path and all that kind of thing because, I happen to be like the first person in the family with a PhD, like, doctor. We have medical doctors, but the PhD aspect. And so I just laughed. I'm like, yeah, whatever, but it was one of those things that I looked at it and I said, this to me is the only logical pathway, right? Outside of doing weird things. So I started to apply. And first year, nothing. Second year, nothing. Third year, I said, if it doesn't come this year, I'm just going to like face whatever I was doing in Nigeria and just go my way. But then that third year came with, you know, an offer
mm,
that came with a full, tuition scholarship with a stipend and health insurance and all of that. And I think what really was fantastic about that, I didn't know this until I came to the US, was I didn't have to work for this. You know
mm.
how normally people would do graduate
Yeah,
teaching and all
yeah.
that. I did nothing. Like I hate
Really?
to say that now because I feel like I
Ah,
might get some haters over this. But it was some kind of university fellowship that they were
offering. Oh, nice.
offering, right? And it was kind of a new thing they were trying to roll out. So the idea was you are just going to focus on the PhD. You're not going to be distracted by all of this. So I literally used the first 2 years to just study, all so I could get, to my comprehensives and pass that. So I thank God for that because I feel like that's a privilege that, I don't even talk about much because it's like, people will say, how
I
did that even
know. I
happen?
know.
Like,
I
I
know.
have no idea, but that was it, right? In that sense. So yeah.
Oh, wow. I didn't know about that part,
Mhm.
So that's because we had to work.
This is why I said I don't talk about it often because it's like I know. Oh my goodness. Yeah. So yep. So that's how I came to the US. And graduate school, I mean, as you might know, was its own wild beast, right? Wildebeest, or how do they say it in South Africa? It was his own like unique animal. But we did it. And I think sometimes that's the inner, like they say, the inner strength.
There's another thing this classic story you told me about, which I thought was, my goodness, this lady has a lot of balls. Like, if I can just get like a tiny leak of it, I take of your balls and apply it to my own, like a form of, grafting or something. Maybe my trajectory will be different. When you go to Temple University, you found out the course that you. Anyways, I'm gonna have you just share that story, because for me, as a grad student, immigrant grad student, I will not be able to do what you did. Maybe people that are listening to this can borrow some form of courage from you. Oh yeah, tell us your story. Thank you.
Okay. So it was two things, right? The first one was when I got there, I was coming to study analytical chemistry, which I really like. Like I like, analysis and all of that. But then when I got there, they said, oh, the professor who was doing that analytical chemistry is rounding up his program. He shut down his lab. He's going to go into administration. And then there was only medicinal chemistry. And I said, I didn't even know there was anything called medicinal chemistry. I knew about organic chemistry, right? And physical and analytical chemistry. So, what is this program about? And I said, remember, I also signed up for a master's. And they were like, oh, if you do a master's in another 2 years, you get a PhD, 2-3 years, you get a PhD. I'm like, okay, so I was like, yeah, 5 years, I can do it. So then I started medicinal chemistry. I'm like, what on earth is this? This is not what I signed up for. And I was like, I don't want to do medicinal chemistry, but I was here already. So at that time, a new professor came into the lab and she was doing pharmacokinetics and drug metabolism. And I looked her up, I looked at what she was doing, and I was like, oh, but this is so aligned with medicinal chemistry, right? The drug metabolism part of it. And so I want to be able to do this. And so I went to the graduate studies director and I said, can I combine the two? He was like, what are you saying? Like, we don't have that. Like, that's what he said. I said, well, we can start it, right? Even if we don't have it, this can be, an opening into that. He said, how are you going to do it? That's double work. I said, I don't mind the work. I just don't want to have a PhD in medicinal chemistry. I want it to be something else, right? But he said, well, we didn't take you for pharmacokinetics. I said, I don't even want pharmacokinetics, right? I don't want that as the core PhD. I still like the chemistry. Is there no way we can combine it? He was like, he doesn't know. I said, I don't mind. Like, can we call it pharmaceutical sciences or something? He said, oh, okay, like I should go talk to the new professor. So I went to talk to her. She was brand new, looking for a graduate student. She's like, hey, come on. So I was her first graduate student. And I said, oh, this is a risk because I don't know the kind of person that she is, but I would take it. And so I went back to the graduate studies director. I said, she has agreed. He's like, okay, and that's how the degree, pharmaceutical sciences degree was born. Right, so now we have.
How did I bring you flowers?
So now you have
to you every day.
I know. So now you have. I'm telling you. So now you have a lot of the people who came in for medicinal chemistry choosing this track, right? And that's because it just opens up more doors for you, right? Imagine if I came and said I have a PhD in medicinal chemistry. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but it's so niche. So niche, yes. And I didn't want that. I didn't want that.
I'm not. It wasn't for
all my life. I've never been that person.
It could be for someone else, but it wasn't for you.
Yes, I love medicinal chemistry as a whole, but I just was like, I don't want a PhD in this field. Like,
and it also limits the things you can do with it. For you as a person, right? Yeah, as a person, So that was it. The second thing that happened was the dissertation committee. I need to laugh first because as you were telling me that, I opened my mouth like,
even me. I don't believe I did that. Like, I look back now and I like, how did I do this? Like, I don't believe I did that. I don't know where this podcast is going to go, but I'm going to be open. Like you said,
we're already past that point now. Right? Those are things that don't scare us anymore.
I'm telling you. So, in fact, they, you are kind of giving your committee, right? You don't necessarily get a choice. Like, you kind of, your advisor, there'll be some key people, there'll be an external. The external one is the one you kind of get a choice because you can choose somebody who you like, who, if they agree, you'll come. So they gave me this committee, and there was one particular person on that committee that I said, this person does not have my interest at heart. Like, literally, like, we all knew this, but my graduate advisor was besotted with this person because he was
They're
a
usually high
very
ranking.
high-ranking person.
Our
Yes, very, very
principalities and power.
high-ranking, very intelligent, like
Yeah.
very intelligent. Like I feel like if I had an ounce of this
Mm,
person's intelligence, that kind of thing. But
mm.
intelligence is not everything, right? In terms of
Emotional
personality
intelligence.
and
So
just
yeah,
like
yeah.
behavior and all that, there was just zero interest in getting to see graduate students succeed, right? I mean, I'm gonna just say it out. And so I said to her, I don't want this person on the committee. She was like, what? I remember she looked at me like,
What?
she said something like, you have no choice, And so I said, but the committee is supposed to be people who have your interest at heart. She's like, but he's a rock star in, kinetics and, medicine and all that. And I was like, so I went to the director of graduate studies. He said, this is not what I can, I cannot, basically, like my hands are tied, right? In terms of this is you and your advisor, and this has to work between both of you. So,
please go on.
Go ahead with this story. So I was like, Lord, I don't want this, So I kind of started to pray about it. I'm going to just be honest. And I kind of said, I wanted to pray about it. Like I said, I want to graduate from this program. I don't want this to be the hindrance for me. And, what's going to be the next step? Like, I'm telling you, I fasted and prayed. I feel like people who are listening who are not Christians probably like, but that I literally did this for about a week. I said, because it's like you could see where something was going.
And your supervisor won't be able to rescue you from that. It's going to be your problem.
Yep. It's going to be my problem, right? I mean, I feel like unless a person has passed through graduate school, they can't understand what I'm saying. Like, that person can literally just ground your whole trajectory.
And because they're also well established. Right? Man, they have power.
Yeah,
who are you?
Now, she kept saying, he's not that kind of person. And I said, but people experience people differently. This was when I started having that idea, right? He may not be that kind of person to you because you already working, you already whatever. But for those of us who are, in graduate school, this is a power differential or a power dynamic that I didn't want a part of. So anyway, about 2 weeks later, we got the information that the person had resigned and was going to a new school.
Praise Master Jesus.
That's where I will leave it.
Oh,
because the person left.
Wow.
Yeah, the person left, and I got a new person on the committee who was just wonderful. Like, my dissertation, my husband still has a video because I was too nervous to even do anything. I was looking at myself, I was like, is this me? It went so well, so well. Like, you could just tell everybody on the committee had your interest at heart. I keep saying that, people keep saying, why do you say that? I'm like, you people, intuition, don't play with it, in that sense. And so, so that's how that went. But I asked, obviously, and the reason I was now saying, fasting and prayer entered it was, it's not like the other one where they quickly agreed and all that. This one, I kind of knew that it cannot be like, talking, because my advisor was adamant that this person will be on the committee, and it's either, you either take it or leave it, at that point. So that was my way of leaving it, because the person left the program. Left the school.
And I think thank you for sharing that, by the way. It's right, the vulnerability. And I think it's important to tease out that we're not saying this person was evil or anything like that. And I love especially what you said about we experience people different ways. And I'm sure your advisor wanted the best for you. But you being the middle person, like when they say if elephants are fighting, the grass will suffer. As a tiny grass in the middle of these two, people who seemingly want the best for you, could tell that this wasn't going to be good for me. And whether and I think God was just who did it for you, because what are the odds of this person just retiring smack dab in the middle of nowhere, right? I'm sure your advisor didn't see that coming as well, because they usually wouldn't
left their own students.
Oh wow!
Left their own students high and dry, right? So their students had to go find other labs.
So, anyways, but you speaking up for yourself, and I think I have a suspicion that incident probably stayed with you, and it's still stemming from the courage you have in helping people like be more stronger advocates for themselves.
For themselves.
And let's talk about power dynamics. And Otito, the reason why I'm just happy about bringing you here, so everyone can hear, who you are, is that one, you're female, you're an immigrant, there's so many boxes you tick. what like,
Yep.
and you work in we work in the same field, but and you know just how what's the word for it? Parochial. Just see,
Yep. Yep.
and
That's
how
the
I mean,
word.
academia is beautiful, but in all of its beauty,
Mm-hmm.
the beauty and
Yes.
just the ugliness, they move in the same direction. Like
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yep.
geometric
Mm-hmm.
proportion.
Yeah.
How have you been able to do it? You know, because people like you who talk, who are very vocal,
My
I
sister.
imagine that
Yeah.
they
Mm-hmm.
probably you probably heard a lot of things said about you. Not always right, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
A lot of things, a
Yes.
lot of behaviors, right? I still thought about it last week, right? Because I came back from a meeting and I'm in this space with this person. You know how it's like, you sit in a
Yeah.
meeting room with people and we meet 4 times a year, right? On 3 times a year. And I've been going to this meeting since 2021, and this person has never said a word to me. Like they will see me, they'll just look
Mm.
away and just go their way, right? Meanwhile, the person sitting next to him or them, I kind of try not to put gender into this, but so friendly, right? They will reach across, talk to me. This person, not him, I'm
So
just
yeah, yeah, yeah,
using
yeah,
him
yeah,
as
yeah.
an example because there are many people like him in the room and they will just not speak to
You're
you.
not
Like
there.
it's like you're
Persona
not
non
there,
grata.
you don't
Yeah.
exist, nothing, right? And so I remember one of my friends saying this was to her the most cognitively dissonant experience she used to have going for meetings, that she said she couldn't do it. She actually left the scientific field. She's like, how are you with human beings that are not just recognizing your existence? And she said, how do you do it? And I said, I have no answer for you except the fact that I just hold my head up high and I just continue on my journey. Like I know I'm heading to X and I just head there. If along the way I get to greet people, that's fine. But I don't enter a room expecting that, people are going to be smiling and nice and all. So I'm not disappointed. It's almost like I manage my expectations prior to entering any space. You understand? Because for some of these people, it's really unconscious. And every time I say this, people think I'm giving excuses for them. But I'm like, no, it's not an excuse. Like people don't even know that that's what they're doing. You understand? And I remember one of our pastors said this to us one time. It wasn't in relation to this, but just talking about some people who only recognize titles and
Mm.
power dynamics. And he's a person of color, he's been in, like places. And he said, I'm speaking from my own experience, right? If you came in and you just said your name, it's like, the minute you say I'm X and Y, then they pay attention to you, right? And he said he's learned to take that for what it is, to say, okay, my being in this space, my having this title, my having this X and Y is so I can reach this particular people. You know what I mean? So that I can at least be able to make a difference in this space. And I've taken that to heart, to say, I'm not here just for any reason, right? I'm here so that the people in this space get to hear a different voice, which they've never heard
Yeah.
before in their lives. Right? They haven't because they've also curated their spaces. Everything has been easy for them. They've only gone in the one
Mm.
direction. You understand? So I now take pride in being in
Mm.
those spaces. In
Mm.
as hard as it is not easy because you get that thing, and like I'm saying, it's unconscious for many people. So you get the conscious side of it, which is the
Yeah. Yeah.
non-existence
Yeah.
of you as a person, right?
Oh,
I,
I
I
do.
think you know
I
what I'm
do.
talking about more. So I've learned to manage my expectations entering into a space so that when I now get the good interactions, right, it's like double
Mm.
joy. You understand? Because it's like, oh, I wasn't even expecting this. Now I have all these
Rooting for
people who
you.
are,
Yeah.
friendly
Yeah.
and all
Yeah.
that and rooting for me. And so it becomes more of my cup being now doubly full as opposed to the
Part of it.
opposite, part of it. Yeah, so that's what I would say. And in terms of speaking up, I'll tell you too that it's a it's a
Learn, learn
it's a
activity.
process of
Yeah.
learning. Yes,
Mm.
learning actively. Because when I was at Vanderbilt, I also had an experience where I thought to myself, oh my goodness, look what happened here. And that was very parochial because I asked for something, I didn't get it. I did ask, I didn't get it. But then the person who was mentoring me, I found out later that they went to say that they didn't think that opportunity was good for me. And so it was on the basis of their opinion that I didn't get it,
Mm.
right, in that sense, which is okay, because he may have seen something I didn't see. I feel like there's that part to say. As a mentee, I may not
Yeah.
be ready
Yeah.
for a position, and my mentor feels like I might be. So there's that part. There could also be the part of the parochiality where you feel like you know what's better for me than myself, right? So there are two sides to that. But then the argument they gave to me, or the reason they gave to me, was there was no money. And I took it. I literally took it as face value. That taught me a lesson now, not to take many things at face value. And then I'm talking to two guys who are from Nigeria. And I was asking, and they said, "Oh, we just registered for X." I said,
Wow.
What happened?" And they said, "Oh, we went to the budget manager to ask her if there was money first before we went to ask." And we went to say, "We know there's money." Yeah. And they said, "We know there's money." And the person said, "Oh, well, okay, here you go."
No, not even that.
And they
If, oh
signed.
my goodness, see how
And I
framing
was
can also
like,
save your life.
I'm telling you, I was like, what? I didn't even feel bad at that. The fact that I said they got it because they
Ask the right
did what they were
questions,
supposed to do. You understand? So exactly. So ever since then, I've become a little bit more savvy. And by savvy, I don't mean, in a negative way, but it's like I go to the source now
You
to
don't go to
ask
the panel
questions.
before
I don't
somebody
ask
can
questions
co-opt
of
it and
people,
turn it. Yeah.
or people cannot help me.
Yeah.
I don't know how to explain it. There are some people you ask questions, they'll be giving you all kinds of answers that don't even make any sense, right? So now I go straight to the source. Like yesterday, I was talking about some award that supposed to come with a monetary stipend. And I'm asking people who have won the award around me, like, we don't know. We asked this person. So I said, you know what, that's okay. I went straight and I copied like 4 people who have won the awards before. I said, what has been the historical trend in this? What are we supposed to know? So that when I'm going to accounts payable or whatever, I would know. And, they've given me answers that I can now use, as opposed to if I just listen to those other ones who are like, we don't know. And then I just move on. I'm like, no, there's an answer somewhere that I need to get to, Same thing happened when I was working as a pharmacist. I came in as a per diem pharmacist. And I said to them, why are we not being paid time and a half? And all the per diem pharmacists I asked said, they don't know. I said, how can you not know something related to your compensation? Like, is this some sort of elitist? You start to feel like, am I the only one concerned about this issue? And so I went straight to the bosses. I said, let me know. Then they said they would go to HR and find out. Then I went to HR, and the HR was like, oh, that's not supposed to be. That was the first thing the HR person said. And then she said, oh, I'll call your boss and find out. And then they called my boss and said, take it up with your boss. It's not from our end anyway. So I knew that there was some sort of de facto arrangement that had taken place on the back end that nobody wanted you to know. But at least I got to the bottom of it. I literally got to the bottom of it. And then they messaged me and they said, well, this is how it's been. And at some point we did like a, across the board raise for all per diem so that they would have, what they needed. And so there's no more of this. I'm like, okay, but the idea that people are working and they don't have any ideas about what is, I don't want to say what is due them, but what is based on the laws that exist, things that exist. It was just surprising to me. But you see, that this thing I'm saying is a problem, because then it's like, how are you the person asking this question, right? We've been here 10, 15 years. Nobody has asked this question. Like, it's almost that maybe the person of, who do you think you are asking all these questions? But I just feel like for my own, peace of mind and all that, at least let me get to the bottom of this, than to be here and just not know, right? Because my knowing will help somebody else. If I know the right thing, then I can tell somebody else the right thing. And that's how, good information flows down the line for me, right? In that sense, I see it almost like a sense of duty that I'm helping other people with the right information, because information really is power, right? Knowledge is power in that sense. And so I feel like if everybody has access to this knowledge, then we can all rise, right? We can all progress, right? As opposed to one person at the expense of others or things like that.
That was very rich. Especially knowing the source, like know your organizational chart. Know who to go and meet and let them hear it in your own voice, and then know who can help you, right? So there's a
Yep.
lot said about just developing resilience, right? And there's something I learned from you. You probably don't remember this. Without giving too much away, I was trying to advocate for somebody to be in a space. And then, because I still occupy that position, so I want to be very careful how I say it. But then somebody told me about this person you're trying to advocate for. When they come to that space, are they going to get support? No. Racial stress. So this is going to be a student who is going to be minority of the minority, getting them in a space where they're going to still become, and you're trying to fight so hard for them to get there. And by the time they get there, you're not even going to be there one-on-one. So, and I think that has also helped me in how I, contribute to those kind of conversations about. It's one thing to win the battle, but there's a war coming ahead of time. What's the trade-off here? If you're going to be in an environment where it's not very, very supportive. So my next question for you with this, we've heard a lot of talk about, as a Black person, you need to develop resilience, develop, some form of, buffering. At what point do you just quit and go find somewhere else? Because that was a conversation that I had to have with myself last year, and you were part of that conversation. Can you just speak to the merit of, when I say quitting, not like you throw in the towel, you're actually living for your mental health, for your sanity. Can you just speak on the merit of that?
So, quitting is valid. I tell people this all the time. Like, I feel like, when you talk about, maybe look at conflict resolution, right? Avoidance is a perfectly
good
valid resolution strategy, right? It's just, I cannot deal with this issue right now. Let me just step away, right? And stepping away could involve you leaving the organization, right? I feel like it becomes a valid option when there's just no support, right? And by support, I mean where if how you've placed yourself in the organization and you feel like you need XYZ and it's not coming. You've asked for it, it's not coming. You've done the things you need to do, it's not coming, right? At that time, the best would be to read the handwriting on the wall and just leave. Now, I say that there's a caveat there because sometimes there are things that are required of you within an organization in order for you to I don't want to say thrive, but in order for you to not be satisfied, right? So sometimes people may not want to do this, but still feel like the organization would cave into them. And that's why I say no, right? Organizations are solid rock systems. Like, I don't know how to explain. Like, people run
stand the test of time and all that. The same thing that keeps them going. It's also the same thing that kind of makes it so hard for them to change.
Yes, makes it so hard, exactly. And because it's people that are running, by the time a person gets to the top of an organization, realize that they have imbibed certain organizational values that you cannot be hoping to change, you as the one individual, right? And so the thing is to realize, is this something I want to stay and, continue to pummel the wall that is not moving, or do I want to take, my resources somewhere else and go, right? And, sometimes it's a trade-off, but I feel like sometimes we don't want to do the trade-off, but we still want to stay and expect the things to work. That's just not going to work because of, the way that organizational systems are structured. And I feel like the other thing I want to say here is that sometimes people kind of say, oh, well, if you stay, then don't complain, things like that. That is not true at all. Because there's something like when you talk about motivation at work and the things that combine to work, there's what you call like the hygiene factor. So the environmental location, the pay, all of that, and there's also the part that has to do with the organizational structure, your boss, your supervisor, the type of work. These two things are kind of not, they are mutually exclusive, right? So I can be very happy with my pay, but dissatisfied with my boss, right? I can be happy with my boss, but dissatisfied with my pay. So it's the tug and the tug between these two exactly that ultimately decides whether I'm going to stay with the organization.
The people you work with too.
But sometimes people are saying, exactly, that's why I mean co-workers, right? But then people think you should not even talk about anything at all. I'm like, but that's not true. You know what I mean? I can be in a job and still say this job is so annoying, but I'm still getting some sort of meaning from it, right? Now, the thing is, when all of these factors, none of them are working, then it's time to leave.
And you have to do that.
Yeah,
And
that's
I
for
think
me. Yeah.
it aligns with the peace index for me, which is that tool that I learned
Mm-hmm.
from my work with Brandon. You know, it
Yeah.
has the
Yeah.
place, it has the
Yeah.
person, it has the people you're working with, you know, the
Yep.
provisions you're getting from there.
Yep.
And you have to be the one to do those
Yep.
relative assessments as to when, yeah.
Yep.
Take those stock. And
Assessments.
then if you have
Yeah.
family
Yeah.
members, maybe if you're married, you have kids, you know, if you have a structure in place, like, or maybe your parents live close by, or, you know, if you're having to move
Yep.
cities and states, are you still going to have those things? Would you have
Mm-hmm.
to spend more time? So again,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I know people who have left jobs because they're just, I don't have any family support. I'm gonna move back,
exactly. So you
right,
do that.
closer to home,
Yeah, very,
and that's
especially
valid,
in this
right?
Obodo America
In
where
that sense,
every man for himself
I'm telling
or
you,
herself.
every man
Mm.
for
So
himself.
one of the
Yeah.
things,
Yeah.
Otito, that
Yeah.
I noticed, especially I think I've learned a lot to
Mm-hmm.
keep my kinds close. And when I say my kind, like I have a lot of mentors from different races, but there's something about just learning the
Yeah.
strength and wisdom of people like me who have gotten to the
Mm-hmm.
space that I'm in,
Mm-hmm.
and you learn
Yep.
a lot. And there are
Yep.
things there's
Yep.
some common suffering points in the sense that we are
Mm-hmm.
often, especially if you made it to a particular level in life where you're working in a place where people don't look like you. Now, I'm all about
Mm-hmm.
representation, you know, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
not just for, you know, feeling the
Mm-hmm.
talking color wheel because you just want to feel the color wheel. I like things to be well
Yep.
represented, but unfortunately, we don't really have people.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have that luxury to be in a space where you have people like you who are doing things that you're doing with a similar expertise who can mentor you. So one of the things I
Mm-hmm.
see a lot is
Mm-hmm.
that usually we might end up having like a supervisor who just always assumes the worst about you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like if
Yep.
somebody or maybe something was said about you in a meeting, whether you were there or not there, but it
Mm-hmm.
makes it over to this person's ears, and they call into the office and they're
Mm-hmm.
schooling you like a schoolgirl without even asking, hey,
Mm-hmm.
this is what
Mm-hmm.
I heard, like doing that proper
Mm-hmm.
translation. And it's not like a
Mm-hmm.
one-time thing. It's happened
Mm-hmm.
so many times that I begin to see that what the heck could be going on. Now,
Mm-hmm.
for people like that who might be listening, especially those that are
Mm-hmm.
in a place of power, again, going back to power dynamics, what are some cultural tips?
Mm-hmm.
And I think everybody needs to have some form of
Mm-hmm.
cultural awareness. I'm not just saying, black, white. I don't care what color
Mm-hmm.
you are. You need to learn how to know your audience and how to tailor messages. What are some of the tips in
Mm-hmm.
just making sure that they're
Mm-hmm.
catering to the needs? Because I can't tell how many times I've heard about the same issue of just having a supervisor that
Yep.
just always assumes the worst of you. They often think you're loud,
Mm-hmm.
opinionated. They
Mm-hmm.
never even want to believe. They just hear that side of
Yep.
the story and that's it. Why? Why are we victims? Why are
Yeah.
black immigrants
Yeah.
victims of that a lot more?
Yeah. It's this idea of ethnocentricity, right? I don't know. Yeah, ethnocentricity, where, yes, I only see the world through the lens of my culture or through the lens of a dominant culture that I've assimilated, right? And so for me, I find documenting things to be very,
Oh yeah.
very um, critical for me in that space, right? And by documenting, I mean sending an email,
Conversation. Yeah.
So if the
Mhm.
person come into their office, yes, exactly. If the person come into their office and they're saying this, I will go back and I will say, for the conversation today, I wanted to clarify X, Y, Z. You understand? And two things that does, it helps me just take away the, pressure of the moment, right? And it also helps me just like basically what's the word,
Yeah. Clarity to it. And
bring
for document for
clarity into my
posterity's sake
thinking
too.
process,
Yeah.
because
Mhm.
many times, yes, many times, I don't know about you, but when people are talking to me like this, I actually lose my train of thought. I feel like I don't
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not coherent, right? And so the emails or the documentation process of writing down something brings
Mm-hmm.
coherence to my arguments, to whatever it is I want to pass across. Because if I'm trying to win the like you said, the battle of talking and trying to get you to listen to me, I sometimes know that's a wasted effort because the person is not listening. They've tuned you out, right? They're not hearing what you're saying, and you're just, having to go over the same points over and over again, which then makes it seem as though you're
Mm-hmm.
being argumentative. And so I don't like that at all, just for my own peace of mind. So I document things a lot, right? To always go back to situation. Now, a very savvy supervisor will not respond to you because responding means they've kind of acquiesced that there was a
Yeah.
conversation and things happen,
At least
but it
you've
doesn't matter.
reported it.
You know
Yeah.
what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
At least I've written that, because what happens is if an incident like that happens again, I can pull that email
The
back and
trend.
say,
Yeah.
the last time, yes, there's a trend here, right? The email that thing serves as a trend for me. And generally, I feel like once you start to document things, people then become more aware of themselves,
And you
right?
can always
It's
put
like,
that for HR.
okay,
You never know
this
when you need
thing
it.
is kind of here.
You never know.
May
You
I
never
never
know.
need it.
I'm just saying,
May one
we
never
will
need
never
it,
need it. And it's that kind of thing that when you need it is often too late
yeah.
because like, I cannot retrospectively
Yep,
put it.
it's
Yeah.
like I cannot. Yeah, right about that. So that's why I say may we never need it,
Amen.
because when
Yeah.
you then need it, it's like I just want to
It's like insurance, like car insurance.
Yep. And then it becomes like a complaint fest, and it's like no. But I tell people by the time you're leaving an organization, just live in peace, right? Don't be hashing things up and saying this and saying that, because at that point you just seem like an aggrieved party,
Yeah.
and you don't want to get to that point, right? In that sense.
Yeah. Well,
I know.
man. So thank you for that. Now for you, I think the tip you provided were for like the victims in quotes. How about for those who are in place of power, who might not necessarily be from our culture? Especially this whole thing of triangulation. There's something that kind of pisses me off than having bosses that don't know how to triangulate.
Yep.
And we're often for us immigrants, we're often the ones that don't talk as much. We're doing good work. We're not
but
quite
we're just
loud about
keeping
it.
quiet.
We're just keeping quiet doing our work. But then that silence sometimes speaks a lot of volumes because they just take it like, oh, you're really the troublemaker. And what are some of the tips you provide is, people in power on how to be adept at what they're doing?
Yeah. The silence speaks volumes because people fill it up with their own theories, right? That's why they talk about communication, that conspiracy theories, like if you don't say things, they'll fill it up with their own stories, which sometimes could be the furthest from the truth. I believe, so it's interesting because we're in such a litigious society, right? So you kind of want to be very careful. But I'm a very firm believer, like you said, in this non-triangulation, right? Let everybody bring their grievances or whatever to the table and let's hear it, right? I'm not trying to judge it, but I feel like hearing each other, it brings some sort of humanity to the process.
To the truth. And even closer to the truth. You might not get the whole truth because you're not there, but at least some form of clarity.
So I believe in that, but I don't think it's the best way always, because sometimes parties can be so aggrieved with each other, right, in terms of this grievance that may not be the best thing to bring them together. But the idea is you want the other party to hear what this other party is saying, right? And to do it in a neutral environment, as opposed to this person told me this, explain yourself. You understand? It's like there's so much value in saying, help me understand this scenario, or help me understand what is going on here, right? So that you can hear the other person's part of the story without defensiveness. Because if you call me and say, somebody messaged me and brought a complaint against you and this is what they said, I'm already up in arms. Like, and you are now asking me to explain myself, right? I feel like if you told me, this person made this complaint, and I told them, the Otito I know will not do that. Let me find out what's going on, right? You see, the minute you do that, you've already de-escalated the situation. You understand?
As in that alone, my heart just felt like I like that warmth that just coursing through my heart. Like, imagine just having a supervisor speak like that about you.
To say, this person I know, you're right, that's interesting. Let me find out, more about what's going on. You've de-escalated, and the person knows they're not going to just come to you with some off the, run of the mill gossip, and you'll just take it. You know what I mean?
It's funny you mentioned that. My husband's supervisor actually said it about him. He's not that kind of person. I assure you that he's not that kind of person. And then it turned out that the other person was in the wrong. Man.
So that little statement alone just shows, okay, I may not know what's going on here, but
let
I can
me find it out.
Right?
Yes. And I don't even mean to say that being in a position of leadership is quite easy. I imagine there's a lot of things coming their way, but there are ways to do it, because what is happening is that a subset of your workforce feels left out. They feel like
disenfranchised.
Exactly, they're not well advocated for.
Disenfranchised. Yeah, I literally said that this past few weeks to say, I don't feel supported, and those are my feelings, right? You cannot take away my feelings from me. You might try to explain and say this, that, and then try to say to me, okay, help me understand why you don't feel supported. Then I could give you presenting evidence. I had never said that, but I felt it was important to say because I felt like the other party may not even know. Right now, if they knew and they were doing that, then that's on them. I'm telling you, like I always say that, I always give that benefit of doubt, which is why I always talk about the unconscious bias and the unconscious things that we do, especially when we are looking at things from a more ethnocentric framework.
Yeah.
If it turns out that the person really knows and then they want to actively disenfranchise you, then that's on them. I don't like saying shame on them, but literally, right, that's on them. It's no more on you. And this is what I tell people. I say, you have to follow the evidence, right? As an example, you are in a position of power and you say, we're going to run a voting system, right? And then you don't show people the results of the vote and you come out and say, this was the winner. Like, there's no trust in that. You know what I mean? And, someone is taking this process and saying, oh, I wasn't one of the selected people. I said, in a voting process that you didn't see the results? Why do you think we on TNN, we're always following them every presidential election as they're tallying up those numbers? It's for trust in the democratic system. I cannot take on the result of such a system and make it a personal character when you have not shown me the system itself. I will not do it. You have to recognize when there's a systemic flaw and when there's just, what do you call it, camaraderie issues. You understand? Yeah. And so I said, she was like, how do you do this? I said, because that's why it's called systems. If you say we're running a vote, everyone should be able to see the votes, the tallies.
Yeah.
You don't come and tell me this is the result of that's the fastest system they talk about or whatever. You don't come and say this is who won and I didn't see the results. I can never trust that kind of process. You understand? So I cannot be feeling bad that I didn't win in a process that was flawed from the beginning. You understand? So I tell people, I'm like, you people, you have to be very careful about being, what's the word I'm looking for? Deceived into thinking that you are the problem, right? In that sense. Yeah.
Wow, thank you for that. Thank you for that. And I let me just speak directly at the heart of the issue. So for another trend I see is that when you work in a space that is predominantly, let me just say white, and you are of color, maybe there's just this perceived notion where they can like talk to you about things. So take, for example, maybe a comment was made or just whatever the issue might be, rather than them just asking you or just talking to you directly. They just walk straight to your boss's office and it's like, oh, this person's so for those people who do that kind of thing, and I know it might cut across other kind of race, but I notice it more amongst white people, because and this is just saying that there's a way it just grieves the spirits when you guys do those kind of things, and I had to make it they versus us versus them. But unless someone has given you a cause not to approach them, maybe they've shouted down at you or screamed at you, or they are known as being, cantankerous. Just try and have an open conversation. You know what? That comment you made, I wasn't very, very appreciative of it. And I want to say that 8 out of 10 times, person might even end up apologizing. But it sows a seed of distrust when you just march straight to the principal's office to report. And then the principal comes to your office and say, come see me in my office. Someone just said something about it's like, oh my goodness, are we in the playground all over again?
Are we in middle school all over again, right? I always say to people, like, coming from a place of curiosity, like, help me understand X, right? I'm curious about why, like, was there any reason why X happened? You see what I'm saying? I feel like that's always helps to alleviate, the situation. Like, for instance, the other day I was in some meeting and, it was starting to become whatever. Like, basically, I felt like the power to hold the meeting was trying to be taken away from me. And so I said, I asked someone, I said, what would you have done if you were leading this meeting? And then they gave, what they would have done. I'm like, okay, thank you for letting me know, right? And then now we can move on. You understand what I mean? And so the thing there was not to be arguing back and forth. It's just let me hear, what you have to say. And then then it becomes me
Case
saying,
scenarios.
I felt like back there you were doing some sort of blaming. The person is like, oh, I wasn't blaming. I said, I didn't say you were. I just said I felt like, right, in that sense, that's what it sounded like. But I would, in the spirit of like trust, like you said, and believing the best. I don't think that's what you were doing, but I want you to know that it sounded like that, But you see, I'll tell you something that I feel like that person was not comfortable at all because they had never been frankly challenged like that. You see what I'm saying? I don't want to, and that's some words that to me like trigger words. When I say challenge, it looks like though it was, belligerent, but you know what I mean? Like, it's like there's a comeback, and I think I always say to people, like, I'm never directly saying this leads to X behavior change at all, right? Or I'm trying to change behavior. But I feel like if anything I say can give you a pause, that pause, there's a lot of room of things that can happen in that pause. And sometimes that's what you want to get to, the pause, because some people have never been stopped in their barreling. You know what I mean? In the things that they do, they've never been stopped to say, hey, what is going on here? You understand? And so even you stopping them is seen as an act of, not even defiance, like fighting. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? And so, yes. And it's like, no, that's not it. It's just when you've had your way all the time, somebody saying stop can look like they're trying to derail you or look like they're trying to, make you not successful or not get to where you're going. But it's literally stop and consider. And one thing that I found out though, honestly, in all the years I've worked, is that a bad leader, it cuts across every race. It's not just you as a person of color. If you dig deep enough, you find somebody else whom they are disenfranchising in some area, maybe because you didn't agree with them here, you didn't agree with them there. There's always something, you know what I mean, for them, because sometimes it stems from a complete, just insecurity. And so that manifests differently, to different people. And so sometimes that kind of also gives me like, okay, this has nothing to do with me and my race in entirety. You know what I mean? That this is just a very generalizable thing of a person just not being an optimal leader, right? Or a boss or a supervisor or whatever in all of these spaces, Yeah, but the older I get, I'm telling you, the more I'm learning to pick my battles, pick the ones that are worth my time and energy, and the ones that are not. And I feel like it kind of surprises people, right? But I feel like, nah. There's certain things that, but like, I don't know if I told you when someone said I was speaking in vernacular, and then I got a message. And it's like, why didn't you respond? I said, because it wasn't worth my time. Like, for a boss who has already believed that I was speaking in vernacular and I wasn't doing my work, what's the thing that I'm going to tell them that is going to change their life? I know, right? So, yeah.
What is even speaking in vernacular? What is speaking in vernacular movie? Hey, goodness.
So yeah, I'm telling you, my co-conspirators, the vernacular speaking was, why didn't you say something that's unlike you? I said, nah, it would not be worth my time. I'm telling you. Yeah, so it's kind of, incident by incident, right? I feel like if you're asking me back at the beginning, like, what are the things that make me keep going? It's because incident by incident, if you start looking at it from this, like, forest level view, you wouldn't even want to go to work, right? You would just feel like, oh, but it's like, the evidence is there. Like, the evidence now, the evidence that we worked on, you and I, like, is there anyone who can see this evidence and say you have not done your work? Then that person is deluded completely. You see, but there are people that have built up such a story that even that evidence, they'll find a way to try and go around it. But that's why it's good to have your quantitative, your hard evidence, right? Because if you didn't have that, then it would be like, oh, we are just talking smoke here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I feel
that
like
much is
sometimes,
true.
like, even in the face of
Yeah.
those hard evidence, they might want to trip you
Yeah.
up with the stuff. Yeah, that's why you need advocate. You need people to help you see the forest for the trees. And
Mm-hmm.
thank you. I mean, you've really helped me a lot. Like, I can't even speak. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
let me speak to some of them. You've helped me a lot. You've empowered me a lot to,
Yes. Yep.
be strong in my own,
Mm-hmm.
like, take pride in what I do, one, but also
Mm.
not to waver in the face of just
Mm-hmm.
those soft talks, right? Now, of
Yep.
course, there's a
Tease
message that
this
are
out.
behind those.
Yeah.
I'm not just saying
Yep.
that, oh, when you hear those kind of
Tease it
conversations,
out.
then close your ears. But when they're
Tease it
coming from
out.
a place of just trying to trip you up, that's when you need to, like, find somebody to kind of
Mm-hmm.
help you tease those
Thank you.
things. Yes, tease it out, and remain confident in yourself. And please
Yeah,
do good work. Keep doing
exactly.
good work in whatever you're doing. I think that's another
Don't wait.
lesson I've
Yes.
learned. And
Yep.
keep
I'm
keep your
telling
head.
you.
How do I put it?
Yeah. Yep.
Sometimes we wait so late for
Too
interventions
late.
to be
Yeah.
tailored.
Yep.
Yeah, don't be that person, because I know you've shared stories. You share stories with me of people who waited too late, and it was too late to even help out. Cry out in time. Cry out in time before it becomes so late. You know.
Yep. Yep. And also, when I talk about that savviness, right? When I talk about the organizational savviness, people think, oh, no, it's about you keeping your eyes open and saying, what is actually going on in this
Mm,
organization,
mm.
right? Not this, if I do the work, people are going to, appreciate it and like it and all that. Jealousy, it's a real human emotion. I
Yeah,
don't know how
yeah,
to explain it, right? Like, so you are doing that work that you said you're doing, it's going great. Somebody else is looking at you and thinking, how is this person being
I
so
know, right?
productive? And all of a sudden, they start to have anti Otito or anti
Yeah,
whatever
towards you. Yeah,
behaviors.
yeah.
And you
Where is it coming
think
from?
it's
Yeah.
something about you know? But it's them just reacting unconsciously to the fact that we're supposed to be in the same place and you are doing better
Hmm.
than me. And what's up, right? In that sense. And so it's the reason it took me a while to recognize this. It took another person, a leadership coach, saying to me, you do realize that jealousy exists, because you have this frou-frou thing of everybody's doing their best and all that kind of thing. And so we should all be kumbaya.
No.
She's like, you need to be
Yeah,
wise. You know
yeah,
what I mean?
yeah,
In that sense, to recognize that people are going to be jealous. And sometimes they don't even know they're jealous.
yeah,
That's what she was saying, that they don't even know that this is what is driving, this like antagonistic behavior. So you have taken your stride. And that's for me, I think if there's anything I'm leaving people with is recognize when that is, and don't take it as a personal thing for you in terms of there must be something
mm,
wrong with me
yeah,
or them, like why, X, Y, Z. No, because look at the evidence, right? You have friends in other places that are your ride or die. You understand? So why is this place be any different? If not because people have set up in their hearts that, they just maybe don't know what you're doing, right? And they then become very unfriendly about it. So follow the evidence, I would say, in that sense. And then look around you, see what's going on in the organization and be quick to say something to somebody else. We suffer a lot internally by
yeah.
ourselves, right? Before we then
And
speak out
it's
and
still,
say
yeah,
something. And
yeah, yeah.
yep, I always say follow the evidence. I read something one time. I've said this to you many times. That thing has stuck with me. You cannot expect good results from a bad
Ooh,
system. Like, you cannot. So recognize when something is a systemic issue, right? And know when to, like we said, leave versus when it's like, okay, it's just one individual who may not have known what they
mm,
were doing here and there, and then take it from
yeah,
that. So
yeah.
yeah.
Oh wow. I mean, this is just, very, very useful. And for our comrades who might be in the battlefront right now, know that you're
Mm-hmm.
not alone. Please reach out for help,
Yep.
and I'm sure you already have mentors, right? But then also try and get sponsors. Sponsors are more powerful people.
Mm-hmm.
One
Yep.
or two in a career can change the course of your career. Find
I'm
those
telling
people.
you. I'm telling you. I mean, there are things happening now for me. I know, okay, maybe this is the flywheel effect that they talk about, but I just keep saying, Lord Jesus, the person that is calling my name in all these rooms, and making them send me all these emails and making them, call my names in all these places. I ask that you bless them 1,000 times over, because I don't know who they are. I have no idea. You know what I'm saying? I keep looking and I'm thinking, if I'm looking, who is the person that I will look at, So that's like, follow the evidence. I'm telling you, this is my prayer every day, that all the people that are calling my names in rooms that I'm not there, in rooms where whatever, Father Lord, just continue to bless them over and over and over
Or when they're
again.
calling my name, they should
And,
just call it, like, increase me on
yep,
every side. Yeah.
yep, increase me on every
Yeah.
side. Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
know, if you're
Yeah.
also on the tenure track, know what the metrics are, right?
Yes.
Like those hard evidence.
Yes.
Okay, X number of publications, you have it. X number of
Yep.
dollars in grant funding, do you have it? And have
Yep.
these conversations with your chair over and over again. Bring those up. By the way, what do you
Over.
think about my readiness to go up for tenure? And then after you're done with the meeting, send a summary. Per our meeting today, here's what we discussed. Again, you're leaving those trails of evidence. You cannot do like Nigeria. If you're in Nigerian or African, the system here is different. Documentation will save you a lot of troubles. It provides clarity. And if something is not clear in that email, at least you wrote it out there.
You wrote it out.
And don't die in silence. Don't die in silence. There's some things that even just voicing it, help will come. But if people don't know what you're going through, they're not able to help you. We want to just muscle through it. Maybe if I close my door, open my door, if I smile, if I don't smile, like, don't always think that the problem is you.
Is you. Yeah.
And of course, you should keep working on your behavior. If you're really rude and all that.
Yeah. If you are
exactly. Yeah. Work on those behaviors. The people that are really bothered about this, they're not the ones that have the issues. Because for you to be bothered about it,
what I'm even
sorry, go ahead.
I'm even saying this is where I would give my brothers and sisters a pass, because I have seen some rude, bullying, cantankerous behavior that is just, everybody just shuts their eye like they didn't see it. You know what I mean? So yeah.
And and if for immigrants like us, what I noticed that we just want to do good work and keep our noses clean. Because we always come with this mentality of, oh my gosh, they picked me. They picked me.
I'm privileged, right? In that sense, to be in this space.
No, you worked your butt off to be here. So it's fine to acknowledge and appreciate them. But now let's get on to the real part. Don't feel like they owe you a favor or anything like that. You're doing the work.
And the other part I want to speak about from an immigrant experience is the environment too, right? Depending on where you go, can be very, very, it's not toxic, but in terms of your psychological health, don't take it for granted. Don't muscle through, like Mo was saying. Look for help. There's help online. There are people you can talk. Even just sometimes talking through a situation brings so much clarity around it. For someone to say, you are not the crazy person here. I remember one time that I took some evidence to somebody. I said, help me see this thing. Or is it that I cannot read English, or what is wrong with these two things? And the person looked at it and said, nah, the tone in this second one is different. It was a white woman. I said, thank you, Jesus, that it's not just me who is overreading things into this one. So, I feel like that's something. Like, don't ignore the impact of a very, hostile environment, right? To your mental health. Don't ignore it at all. If you can leave, you leave. If you cannot leave, then what are the things you need to do to find support? I feel like there's something that helps us with the faith communities or other civic things that we're doing. So hold on to that, do that, because I'm telling you, follow the evidence. You will see all the places where you've done good work. It will not be one person telling you didn't write, your fourth paper today, that will then, be the cause of you saying, oh, my life has unraveled. Your life is rich. It's full of good things. Don't let anybody try to make you think otherwise, right? In that sense. So.
Yep. And I think just to stress that point of, you already know if your work is not working for you. You find your blood pressure is already high post-pandemic. Driving to work, you're already feeling bish. You're not sure whether to open your door. You always have to read the room, plant a smile on your face to disarm the tension. There's always that over performance. I feel like whenever you're interacting with people, there's a performance, but then yours is just, you're always performing, always performing. And then you don't even feel safe. Psychological safety, you don't have it there. Why are you there? You spend 1/8 of your life
Mm.
One third of
Mm.
your, sorry, one third. Is it one third? Yeah, one third.
Yep.
One third of your day, 8
Mm-hmm.
hours. One third of your
Mm-hmm.
day at work. It doesn't have to be a perfect
At
space,
work.
but if it's not
Yeah.
contributing to the
Yeah.
quality of your
Yep.
life,
Yep.
even if the paycheck is
Mm-hmm.
well, how
Mm-hmm.
are you paying it
Mm-hmm.
for? How are you paying it back? How are you
Yeah.
spending it? The money is all going on your
Of
health.
your life.
You're not
Real
happy. You
quality.
come home, they're never getting the best out of you.
The quality of your life. Yeah. Yep. Yep. Yeah, the quality of your life. I know people who say to me, like, we don't even believe you're in academia because you just have so much fun with your whole self. You're always doing one thing or the other and all
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
And I'm thinking, but that's what gives me life, though. Academia chose me, but sometimes you can unchoose things too at some point to say, no, it's not by this. But then I don't necessarily go around telling people this is what I do. This. But I'm glad that graduate students now are getting, a bit more holistic advice about just how to manage
yeah,
life because I
yeah,
was that person. I was very unilateral, like, one direction in grad school. Oh, I need to graduate. This is all I need to do. If I knew what I knew
yeah,
then, now I could
yeah,
have
yeah,
gone,
yeah.
continued my baking, continued other things that I was really good at that I just shelved, right, for 5 years. So, but, now I know better, which is why I'm like, I cannot take that same mindsets or behaviors into the real work
Yep.
or the real world with children now, right? In that sense. So I make my sacrifices, but they're sacrifices that I choose, right, to make. And as I'm making them, I know I'm making them for myself. And it's not like anybody will now come and be telling me, right, what they think is good for me or is not good for me in that sense, But again, I
No.
I always
Mm-hmm.
run
Mm-hmm.
end with
Mm-hmm.
this caveat that the way I'm smiling now, it's not like it's easy because people will ostracize you. They will ostracize you because they are not used to different. So you have to have a very like a center that is not a strong exactly. So that's why I'm saying you won't find me in those spaces because that's not my belief, right? I feel like if I'm there, it's just I'm being in a place that is incongruent with my beliefs. And so that's another thing because people will look at you and say, that's not even possible for you to have this rich, full life and still be a true academic. That's your opinion, you know what I mean? And that's okay, you can hold it, but it doesn't change anything. But my point being that there's a value you can hold that is somewhat antithetical to the, mainstream values that you then have to even be more like, God, what is the thing that I really want for my life? And hold on to that because otherwise, all around you is this current that is telling you you should be going upstream, right? While you are going downstream, or you should be going downstream while you're trying to go upstream. So that values conflict with the mainstream. It's a tension that just doesn't go away. You just have to try to manage it and say, what is the thing that is bringing me and my family joy and everything in this space, and then
Yeah.
continue to do that. Because I find many times that people, they're vying for things that I don't even know that they want it. Like I always tell people, I feel like I'm so good at what I don't want, that it shapes what I want. You know what I mean? In that sense. Yeah.
Want, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. That's a quote. How let's quote that. I'm
Yeah.
so oh,
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Like it's
Yeah.
not a
I
fear of
don't
missing.
need
It's like
this. Yeah. I'm not
intentional
gonna
for you. Like I don't
and
need
I'm
this.
not
I'm not
so
gonna
I
sweat
think
my
it
bullet
surprises
over it.
people a
Yeah,
whole
yeah,
lot. Like, how can you not need this? But I don't. Like I know deep in my bones. And that's the funny thing because people think when you say that maybe you really wanted it and you're using it as an excuse. I'm like, you have no idea. You have no idea that I have no
yeah,
need or want
yeah,
for this particular metric or position or things like that. Yeah. Yep. I
yeah,
know.
yeah. Ooh, this is so rich. This is so rich. This is so rich. And I think wherever, especially for academics like us, you've done a lot to be here.
Amen.
And I hope you find ways to keep making it work for you, and
Yep.
having some
Yep.
form of
I tell
there
people
should be some
don't.
joy that comes to your
Yep,
work.
some joy. Yes, I
Not
tell people
always
just
joyful,
don't
but
be
some
involved
joy.
in a race to the bottom. And
Some
I
joy.
got that from the editing circles that I'm in. That sometimes people are just circling around this almost like dead carcass, and you're like, what is all this? When there's life ahead of you, what are you doing here?
And let's be very honest. People have sacrificed their life at the altar of academia
I'm
only for them
telling
to get
you,
to the top. There's
I
nothing there.
realize I don't want
You've
this.
sacrificed
So
family. You've sacrificed your health. You've sacrificed
I
your
mean,
life.
as with many other situations or careers, but academia in itself just becomes pernicious because of
No,
just
it's
the
almost like
consuming, all
empty,
consuming.
empty.
Yeah.
Like he just wants more and
Yep.
more. Never
Yep.
satisfying.
That's what I mean, like
And
all
never
consuming,
satisfied. Yes.
all consuming, And I
Yeah.
feel like another place that I need to speak about is the role of volunteer work. I'm telling you, there's certain friends of mine that would say, you mean you are on these committees and no one's paying you? I'm like, no, service,
Yeah. Yeah.
of just, if you're on a committee and people are trying to give you stress, remember it's volunteer work. I'm talking about extra, academic organizations, right? Or this, what you call the ancillary ones, and you just step away if you need to. I'm saying the step away should be a value that you apply to all the things in life that are just not working. Yeah.
Yeah. My goodness. Well, this is just been really nice chatting with you. Before
Yep.
you go, I know you're involved in a lot of ventures. You have your
Yeah.
GitHub
Yep.
editing. Talk
Editing.
a little bit about your work you do. And I've actually worked with her, by the way.
Yeah.
Otito was super, super helpful in putting my tenure package together, which I just put in. Oh my goodness. We met regularly, I think up to 10, 12 times to go over the crafting. She made me, we kind of did like an initial consultation where she asked about she actually had to send her what my school requires. So that way she had a foundational knowledge. And the feedback she was providing for me was very helpful in tailoring it to what my school required, as far as the language and also understanding the geopolitical space you're in. So whereas I was using words like intersectionality, cultural diversity, equity, just like, okay, wow. I still laugh about that feedback. She's like, you put nothing in Yoruba.
I actually spoke it to you.
Yes. And I listened to your voice. I know. But then we're done. Even myself, I know. You know how Jesus said, after that man touched Jesus' cloak, I said, power just left me. I know that I will not be the same again. But I was and before that, I was so worried. I didn't know how to even get started. But if my chair read it, I told you his feedback, like he loved it. Tell us about what you do and how you can, because I want you to get more clients, though, because
I know.
we must make
but
this
you
money.
See, more. Let me tell you, that's why I said follow the evidence. It was me that did that work. I can do the work. I just helped you put it together.
You helped.
No,
seriously.
but what I mean is, all the things that were in that package was you that did it.
You helped me see, even the
I
things
know,
that was
see the work,
downplaying.
right?
I was like, no, you put this how you craft it. Did you do? I remember. I thought everyone was always reminding me. I remember you got this award. How come it's not in here? I was like, I tell you what. No, you put the award there. I was like, no, this lady, she will not let it go.
That this has said to one of my clients too, right? When they send me their package, I say, where is this thing that you talked about? Remember you talked about one incident in the, at your workplace. She's like, oh my God, that it happened to me and I've forgotten. I said, but these are what you call critical incidents. I didn't forget it because it impacted me so much. Put it inside there. Put it inside that essay and that narrative. I'm telling you, she was like, no. Yeah. Yes, that she put it in the narrative, because I was like, there's no better person to tell your story than you. You know what I mean? And so what I help people do is just craft that story. Like I help them with the words, right, to craft the story. But the story is theirs. I'm not there at Oklahoma. Neither was I there, in yes.
But you understood, like, so this is what you did.
Yeah.
Even because I didn't know I had this tendency of just downplaying my achievements.
This thing is a thing with people of color, though. I'm telling you.
I was like, this is not the time. Me, I even thought I said that's not my problem now. Otto was like, this is not the time. You have to say everything.
Yeah, I agree. And I learned this, from being in predominantly white spaces. I'll tell you, it's not. I didn't know how to do this, right? But when I see people just speaking and writing, I'm like, I said.
I want to even do in self. You're like, is it this smart thing that I saw you 2 days ago?
In the lab that, okay, let me help my brothers and sisters. And so this is the work that I do. I really help people to, write up themselves, right? And I tell people, I use that word because write up is typically seen as, a reprimand or whatever. No, I'm using it in the right sense of the word. Write up. Yes.
Go up. Yeah. Elevate. Yeah.
Yes. This is the work that I do. I love doing this work so much. I don't know how to explain. Like, I feel like You know,
It's a
you
calling,
use it
man.
and you show the
It's a
person,
calling.
the strength that they have, right? And why is it a
Yeah.
calling for me? And I look at it as, you know, equity work, right? Because we're in these spaces where all we're told is, yes, but you are great, but you know, there's always a but. I don't want to see any but in anything that I work with for people. I'm like, let's go all out. Let's go all out, back to the end, and then see where it takes the one, you know. So yeah, obviously, and I tell people it's not boasting, it's you stating what you have
It's
done
not.
in very clear,
Yeah.
strong language, right? You know, I showed you that thing where I said I pulled out the kinds of reference letters that men and women write, and just
Right. Difference. Yeah.
how different
Yeah.
it was. And it's like, what is
Man.
this thing about us women that we use this kind of language that is soft
I don't
pedaling?
know.
You make it a group
I don't
thing,
know.
you know.
Soft.
Meanwhile,
Yeah.
the men would come and say, I vigorously and enthusiastically, and this person is the best thing since sliced
I
bread. And you are
single-handedly.
thinking, yeah, there are many types of bread, but you know, this person's bread, you know, is okay among the many types of bread. Nah.
Man. So there's some of the things she can do for you. For those of you that are putting your tenure
Yep.
package together
Or
or whatever
whatever
dozy you're putting
yeah.
together,
Mm-hmm.
you need
Yeah.
Otito. She's savvy and she will understand the local context. You know, that's why I gave that example of Oklahoma and then all my school required. Like she studied my schools, you know, tenure, P&T, promotion and tenure language. And so throughout the feedback, she was like, nope, you're not going to write it that. This is how you do it. This is how you do it. And then having the story stick to it, because sometimes I had to write for my teaching, my research, and then my service. And I won't lie, at the point I was getting tired.
Yeah.
I wrote my teaching first because that was like one of the most, you know, I struggled a lot with in the beginning parts of it. But my research, I was very confident in that area. So she could see that, okay, your tone is kind of changing, you know.
Keep up.
Otito called it back again. Like, no, we're gonna again write it up. Yeah, keep up the pace.
Yeah.
Keep up the pace. When it came to the service, she would not even let. That one was like my list number of pages. I think it was like 15 pages long or so. She's like, nope, you're not gonna do that again. Keep that. So again, you need to get her on your services, and I'm bragging about her because she. If I hadn't used her service, I wouldn't have talked about it. And I'm walking you guys through just how she's been very, very useful to me. So for those that are interested in finding you, let them know how they can find you.
But
go ahead
you can
and
find me on
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn, send me a message, and then getfabediting.com. That's my editorial services. And then, you know, for the career path, because I help people. So that's another thing I did talk about. I'm a certified professional in talent development, right? And I went and I got a whole master's in organizational psychology. And that's because of this passion for helping people, right? You know, walk through organizational barriers and blocks and, you know, things that can really, really, you know, impact your self-esteem. So for that one, it's strategy at careeraspirations.com. I'll give you all of this, you know, links more so you can put in the show notes. But you can find me on LinkedIn. If you type Otito Iwuchukwu, I feel like I'm the only Otito Iwuchukwu on LinkedIn, right? In that sense, it's not a very common name. So yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm quite responsive to messages through that. And I'd love to help you. I feel like if you're listening to this and you need something like a dossier, things you want to, you know, finesse and put together, right? This is, I've been doing this for 7 years now. I consider myself, you know, good at what I do because I get all my certifications and all the things I need for mastery in that space. But I also bring a passion to the job. I think that's something that, you know, I think sets me apart because I want to see you succeed. I'm not doing this because I just need the dollar amounts or I do the, you know, I just need just to get paid and go, right? I kind of have this affiliation. And I think my work speaks for itself because a lot of people I've worked with have gotten, you know, what they needed, right? From the documents that they worked with me with, which to me, that's the success, right? That's the success. So, yeah.
Yeah. Man, I'll just end by saying this, like, last year I was not in a good frame of mind. I was this, and Otito can attest to that. I was this close to just leaving my job because I was just going through so much turmoil. And to say that I'm the same person still sitting here in front of the mic talking about my work, like it's nothing short of a miracle.
You can see how much we shared your joy, right, in our little group. Because I literally was like, go and ask, right? There's no harm in asking.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's no harm in asking. Even the fear, like we dread the question more than the potential answers we might get, right?
Yeah.
So in addition to needing like, tenure packaging, if you just need
Yep,
someone to
about
talk
work.
to, like an
Yeah.
advocate,
And
you're
help
going
you
through some work
see
stuff,
another
there's an
perspective.
ally.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. Perspective.
yes, there's an ally. Because one thing I also learned is that your boss too, they also want to go
Yep.
home to their family. Unless somebody's like really, really, really wicked. Most people are good. They always want to operate from the standpoint,
Mm-hmm.
I'm a good person. So your boss's culture
Yeah.
might be different from yours in the way they
Yeah.
handle their but by the core of it,
Yep.
they're still good people. They might want your best at heart. They might
Yeah.
not be saying it the right
Yeah.
way or doing it the right way. So always still
Benefit
give them
of
that
doubt.
benefit of the
Mm-hmm.
doubt. Like stick the
Mm-hmm.
best in them
Mm-hmm.
as well, right? And I think even learning that part of, that
Mm-hmm.
emotional awareness that, what, this person might
Mm-hmm.
not be doing
Mm-hmm.
right by me, but I still think
Mm-hmm.
fundamentally a good person. That maturity, you also in that. So reach out to Otito. Like seriously, I vouch for her a lot. She can walk you through. I've introduced her to a lot of my
Mm-hmm.
colleagues and
Mm-hmm.
my friends as well. So,
Yeah.
anyways, and she's one of
Yeah.
my favorite people.
Same here,
She's very
Mo.
intentional.
Same.
I met her as a
Yeah.
new
Yep.
professor at the
Yep.
ASCP conference,
Yep.
American Association
I
of
sat
Colleges
with
of
you at that
Pharmacy,
round
and
table.
she
I would
was
sit with my
yeah,
people
she
like
was
that. Yeah.
Otito
Yep.
spoke up. I'm like, who's this person? Like, she's like, who's this
Yeah.
person? Like the way she was even talking was so. And she hasn't changed since then. Oh. We've she kept in touch with me. She's very intentional. She's very intentional about
Yep.
community. We even now
Yeah.
room together
Yep.
during those conferences, right? And she's someone that I'm like, you know what, this is your person. Like she's super intentional. She just doesn't do
Yeah.
things touch and go, and you get what you
Yeah.
want out of
Yeah.
it. And I
Mhm.
love her so much. So
Thank
thank you so
you.
much,
Thank
Tito,
you.
for
I
all
know.
you've
Thank you
done and
for
all you keep
inviting me.
doing. Really,
I'm glad we're able to talk about this. I feel like, I'm hoping that
thank
more women of color in academia, right? We can
I
get to
know,
talk through these things and yep.
liberating from the
It's a real
plantation.
plantation.
It's a real plantation. Oh, we're doing work,
There's
but then
no
there's no support.
support,
Day, we cannot be
Yeah,
suffering
yep,
twice.
that's it. The twice suffering over. Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah. It's well.
Mm,
Yeah,
mm, 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 mm.
yeah,
We'll
yeah.
do well. We'll do well. I'm sure people will
We
be liberated
do
by this. I
well. I
cannot wait
feel
to
like
even
we
hear the
do
testimonies.
well.
Yeah.
We do well. But like you said,
Yeah.
it's the organizational, institutional, all of those kinds of things that we need more of, right? We need more of it. So yeah. Thank you so
Agreed.
much.
Thank you. And I'll
Okay.
link all
Yep.
of your links and your
Yeah.
people where people can find you. She's also a badass cook, by the way. Hey, this lady. We didn't talk about her. She can whip up everything. Morocco, and she has even the gadgets in her home.
Gadgets.
I'm sure, hey, as in, she can cook
Yeah.
anything from Algeria or Katango, wherever.
It's
She knows
funny
all the
because today I
ingredients.
made Korean chicken. Like my children love it. I'm telling you.
Which one is the fried ones or
No,
the
not
stir
the
fried?
one, the grilled.
Double
The
fried.
grilled. So I use gochujang and gochugaru. Yep,
Oh,
yep, yep.
oh wow! Did you have him some
No,
kimchi?
no,
Did
no,
you
they
have
don't
him some
like it.
kimchi?
I'm telling you, they just
Saute with a bit of
devour.
sesame oil
They,
and put some
I
gochujang,
did
put some
gochujang and gochugaru. Those two things. They love it. Like love it. I don't make it often, but
and
they love it.
sesame oil with
Yes.
this
Yep.
kimchi.
Yep.
Yeah, that's stir fry
Yeah.
a little bit. Yeah,
Yep. I
kimchi is so
know. I
good though.
like it. I like it, but they
I
don't.
eat it almost every day. Yeah.
I know.
People are fed now.
I
She's used to
know.
it. She didn't like the
Oh
smell
yeah, yeah, yeah,
initially, but I'm
yeah.
like, you better get used to it. Now she loves it.
Oh, it's well.
Anyways,
Yeah.
thank you
Okay.
so much. So, my
Okay.
regards. And you didn't talk about your own
No. Yep.
podcast. Maybe tell us
So
about a
yeah,
podcast
I
where you
guess
go and then how people can
yeah,
find
this
you.
is when I talk about living a full rich life, right? Outside of some of these places, we are not playing. So my son and I have a podcast. It's called Grey Couch Conversations. It's a YouTube channel as well. So if you're looking for, something about relationships and bonding and conflict resolution, you will find it there, right? So yep.
Yes, and we've been on there, and
I'm
I
telling
mean,
you.
our
Yep.
husband is like just like almost like they mirror each other. They're so perfect for each
Yeah.
other. And I haven't said that about
Yeah.
couples. They're very, very
Yeah.
intentional people.
Yep.
Anyways, thanks for all you
Thank
do,
you.
Tito,
Yeah.
and thank you so
Okay.
much for coming on the
Yeah.
show.
Bye.
All right,
Yeah.
take
Bye-bye.
care. Bye.
Mm.
Oh wow! All right, my goodness, this was a rich episode. As you all can see, I didn't really hold back in talking about just some of these issues that are prevalent in the workspace, especially for women or people of color or minorities or immigrants. Sorry. If you love this episode, which I think you do, just let us know. And if you have more questions you'd like for me or Tito to explore in another episode, let us know as well. In any event, I hope you keep finding ways to empower yourself at work and Never discount the importance of community through mentorship and sponsorship to help you navigate some difficult spaces, especially if you are different from where you are working. As far as you are a minority in where you're working, and that can mean anything. It could be the only female or the only male or the only white person or the only black person, and all the dynamics that are bound in those spaces. Anyways, thank you once again. I remain your host, Sibyl, and bye for now. This has been the Sibyl podcast. Share with your friends, download, please, and let's just keep this podcast going. Bye.